This
Casey,
conference will now be recorded.
we're now being recorded.
You are now being recorded. Yes, it looks promising that our live stream will be up any second, but I can only make the computer move as fast as it'll go. So sorry for the delay.
Now we live in a world of technology.
Yeah, and if you would like to start the meeting, we do have a notice that we are having technical difficulty, and we will pick up the meeting in progress if you choose to do it that way. If you choose to wait, that is fine as well. It's your call.
I figure if I sit and think about it long enough, you'll solve the problem, right?
That's what I'm hoping.
Well, I have 3:03 Apple time, so I'm going to watch the kettle and see if it boils until 3:04 Apple time.
All right, sounds good. Still waiting here.
That minute or part of it will seem like an eternity. Oh, all right. It is 3:04 p.m. and I will call the meeting to order. This is the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners. It's Monday, November 23rd. And I will just pause and say I was in the 8th grade when this day became infamous. And we are having a virtual meeting. We are having some live streaming technical difficulties at the moment. We hope they will be resolved soon. And as soon as they are, we will be live streamed live on YouTube. Again, this is the Board of Commissioners meeting. It is 3:04 p.m. I call it to order. We have done a sound check, and Chair Jacobson is excused today, but we do have a quorum. Myself and Commissioner Hall do represent a quorum. Next item on our agenda is the adoption of the consent calendar. These are items of a routine nature or items that have come before the Board of Commissioners previously. Is there any item that Commissioner or staff wish to highlight? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I would move for approval of the consent calendar as presented.
And I will second it. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Next item on our agenda, reports. And as is becoming the tradition, we'll start out with an update on the Echo Mountain Complex fire. And I believe Council Belmont, you'll start out.
Thank you, Commissioner Hunt and Commissioner Hall. So let's talk a little bit about some of the activities that have taken place since we last did a report last week. First and foremost, Chair Jacobson, and I know that Casey Miller, Jenny Damaris, and others had a community meeting with folks up in the impacted area in North County to talk about some of the assistance that's being provided through FEMA, through the state, and then through the county. And the feedback we were getting on that meeting was it was very valuable. As you can imagine, folks who are survivors of the fire are significantly impacted and continue to be significantly impacted. And it's not just their immediate needs for food and shelter, but it's the emotional needs of having to deal with the loss of so much and how to rebuild and replace what they did lose. That's something that we actually hope to hold on a more regular basis with the members of the community up there to really kind of get some direct communication going between the county and the victims of the wildfire. So it was a good start, I think, at doing that. We've obviously been communicating through a number of means and a number of avenues all along since the fire started, but this was great to have this ability to do a one-on-one appropriately socially distanced and prepared in light of COVID. So that was number one. We got more information this week on the FEMA housing mission, and specifically on the attempts to provide the direct housing that's going to be done here. The focus right now is on the portion of Lincoln City's villages at Cascade called Fernwood. That's the area that they're actually examining right now. I know I worked a little bit with some folks from FEMA and the city of Lincoln City to give them access to the property to make some additional assessments of what services could be provided and how that's going to work. And it looks like that's going to be the site of the direct assistance component of the housing mission. We also talked a lot about what other assistance is being provided, because obviously not everybody is going to be having that direct assistance. And so we're working hard to make sure that nobody falls through the gaps. There's a lot of work to do between now and the time that people ultimately get to where they're going to be going, replacing or rebuilding their homes or whatever the next steps might be for them. But I think we came away from this last week a little bit more confident in terms of the specific assistance that's going to be provided out there and the various options available to folks in the future. We also talked and have been working with the what they call the multi-agency social service team, or the MAST, which is the state's what the state is standing up to take over for the American Red Cross to provide assistance to folks after December 31st. So at the end of next month, there's basically a handoff that occurs between Red Cross for those folks who are receiving Red Cross assistance and the state with this local MAST team. So we're learning more about that process and really getting those activities together. And then finally, there is, we're moving forward. We talked at length last week about the debris removal, the step 2 availability of services that's going to be provided here for a number of people. There's a lot of logistics around that particular activity, a lot around erosion control and mitigation. And we have a great team in our Public Works Department and our Solid Waste District with Paul Seitz and Roy Kenyon, who are our boots on the ground up there to make sure that those activities are going forward. And I think we're really looking forward to that. That actually is going to start in earnest in December in the area, to continue with the cleanup that actually occurred in step 1, which was the household hazardous waste cleanup. So a lot of work occurring in the community up there. So I think that's all that I have on wildfire. Unless there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Commissioner Hall, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Belmont. So you said the Fernwood property, villages at Cascade Head, would be the site for the FEMA direct housing assistance. So just for clarity's sake, I want to confirm that this is the location we would be talking about for FEMA manufactured homes or trailers.
And that's correct. And I think the decision, although nothing is at this point finalized, this is just the direction everything's going. They have to work through a lot of logistics again. What we were told is that they are looking at manufactured homes and not trailers. I think you hear a lot about in these kinds of disasters, you hear about the FEMA trailers. Well, no, they're talking about really manufactured homes. And I think there's a lot of advantages for those kinds of housing units in our climate with our kinds of weather issues we have to look at. So that is the direction that FEMA is heading.
And do we have an idea of number of manufactured homes that might end up being sited there, or is that still to be determined?
That's still to be determined. And again, they've got, they've done some initial eligibility calculations. They've been contacting people. Obviously, just because you're qualified for this housing, some people take alternative routes and don't actually, even if they qualify, they don't go this direction. And so that's all to be determined now in terms of the eligible persons and who's going to take advantage of this and how many units that actually results in.
And again, along those lines, even though I think, as you have discussed, we've discussed at previous meetings, the housing mission includes a whole suite of assistance, as not just the manufactured homes, but lease, rental, a whole range of options. So I guess it's important that we again reemphasize for people who might be viewing this that yes, it's manufactured homes, but it's also going to be several other things. Correct?
And that's correct. Yeah, there are other options available, and actually a number of people are taking advantage of those other options currently. But that's the main thing for us, is to make sure that what we want to do is make sure that nobody falls through the gap, that they're looking and choosing from all the available options there, what best suits their needs.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. I'll follow up on where Commissioner Hall just ended. The FEMA also has a variety, and I just, again, want to highlight this information for the benefit of people that may be unaware. FEMA has a variety of other assistance outside of housing. There's some individual assistance and other assistance programs available through FEMA that are in addition to or supplemental to the housing program. Is that correct, Counselor?
That is, and to give you an example of one, is they actually will provide direct financial assistance to somebody who, for instance, can arrange to rent or lease their own property. And what they do is they normally set that at the real market, or the rental market value. They establish what that rental market value is for the area. One of the features we have is, given the status of our rental market, and especially in North County too, is we actually get 125% of that RMV. They're making that available to the folks. So there's actually more money being provided, given the nature of the rental market in Lincoln County.
Okay, then back up. We were talking about housing in general and some of the meetings that have been held. I participated in a meeting last Thursday with a Regional Solutions Advisory Committee, which consists of Lincoln, Benton, Lynn, and Lane counties. And other commissioners shared, I guess, the frustration that I feel to some degree, and that is there is a lot of activity by a lot of different organizations related to housing. How comfortable are we with the coordination amongst those different agencies, volunteers, and to what degree do we have comfort with the type of demand for what type of housing?
Well, I think that's something that we're working on right now. And actually, the frustration you were hearing from other counties has been a frustration in our county too, of having a lot of different players involved in this, a lot of different programs, a lot of different solutions. And most importantly, making sure that what we can do is start with the universe of all the survivors here as one group, and be able to actually say, this survivor is taking this option, this one's doing this, and tracking between the various programs that are out there. We're actually doing some work right now, working with the American Red Cross. We know how many people, for instance, are currently taking advantage of the housing that they offer. And then how does that translate into what FEMA is identifying as those who are utilizing one of the options that they're making available here? And do those numbers jibe? Not just, so we're looking at the raw numbers, doing that, but more importantly, we're also trying to follow up with individuals and families, so that as we get more information, we know that family X, was impacted and has 3 family members. What are they doing to get housing services? Or what are their options available to them to actually go forward with housing, both in the short term and in the long term. So there's a lot of work involved in that. That's actually a key component of what we're going to be doing over the course of the next couple of weeks, is really trying to take all the various information from different sources, put them into one area, and make sure that people don't fall through the gaps. Very important.
Okay, thank you. I'll follow up on that line of questioning, but I want to divert to Red Cross. My understanding is the Red Cross housing program will cease, if you will, the end of the calendar year, December 31st, but there are plans for FEMA to take over that, or could you discuss that, please?
Actually, it's the state of Oregon that would take
State of Oregon?
That is the
so instead of the federal government, it's the state government.
Yes. And so that, and it's actually, it's the, you know, there is a warm handoff, so to speak. No one's going to be, you know, just told to leave one day and that's, you're gone. There's going to be plans in place to actually deal with every single person who is continuing to have housing at the end of that time frame. It's just that Red Cross's role in that process will be assumed by the state.
And there was considerable discussion on that concern at the Regional Solutions meeting last Thursday. And I did share our concerns along with the other counties as to a better understanding of who's involved and what the numbers are relative to housing. So I guess that takes me back to housing. So at this point, do we have any kind of feel for what kind of demand there is for housing? Because I think that's a critical issue when we start talking about the turnkey project.
Well, I think if there's nothing else, what you can do, if you can do like I do, which is the simplest math in the world, and that is that you look at how many people Red Cross is currently housing in motel rooms in Lincoln County and North County. And that's the universe of people that we better have a solution for those folks. What you know, what are they going to do? And then start chipping away with that. Well, this many are going to go on be served by the housing mission. This many are going to be served, you know, by one of the other options that FEMA puts forward. This many are doing something on their own eventually here. So we do have sort of a universe of what we're looking at in terms of the need. And I want to make sure we understand too that needs change. So it may be that someone who originally came out of the fire was able to be housed by, let's say, a family member or a friend, even as much as sleeping on a couch or sleeping in an RV in the front yard, you know, kind of thing. And that might be fine for a short period of time, but that's not going to be necessarily the solution that serves those people, you know, until they get into more permanent housing. So that's one of the things that we've been pressing really hard on with our state and federal partners is what happens when the situation does change. How are we flexible in terms of responding to those needs as they arise later on in the year? And so we're getting some answers in terms of what can be done. I guess the one thing, if I was to come away from this a little bit with advice, is that the one thing that really is a key, and I think we've got people pretty well covered, but people need to make that ask for help, you know, right now. Even if they're not immediately using it, they need to have applied for FEMA assistance. You know, they need to get their place in the line
Registered.
here. Yeah, they need to get registered. So that's why we actually got them to extend, it was at our pressure, that FEMA extended the deadline for making applications to November 30th. It was actually supposed to be earlier in the month. And we're doing an all-out push, I know, through our other resources and communications that we're making up there to have people make sure they're making their contact with FEMA and getting in line so they can get assistance. So.
Yep. Okay, hold on, Rachel and Sheila. I see both of you have turned on your mics. And we'll get back to the housing and the turnkey update. But Commissioner Hall, I didn't know if you had any other questions. And well, Commissioner Hall's getting back to the camera.
No, I don't, Commissioner Hunt, but I do believe that Rachel and Sheila might have some things to actually share at this point that even beyond turnkey that kind of help a natural progression on our discussion on housing.
Yeah, I didn't want to go to the turnkey project if there were still some more general questions relative to the fire complex and other issues. So if not, Rachel, I see your microphone is turned on. So tell us about Project Turnkey, and Sheila, feel free to join in.
Well, before we jump onto Project Turnkey, actually, we were going to try and chime in on the issue prior, just the fire updates, and
Okay.
I'll give you Sheila in a minute, but just to give you guys a sense of things, we are working with the fire services navigator person who is housed at the Olala Center. And Bethany is her name, and she has been tasked with meeting with each and every one of the people who are still housed in motels and hotels around the county And she has said that of the 180 or so folks who are still housed, she estimates that about 30% of those people do not have the financial means to get themselves into a different sort of housing situation. And Sheila has a lot more information too about understanding some of those housing needs, and I'll turn it over to her, and then we can talk about Project Turnkey after that.
All right. Thank you for that. Sheila.
She said precisely, thank you, Rachel, for covering that. It was around what we anticipated, frankly, for the need, which is, and you're absolutely correct, there has been quite a disarray of crisis rapid response from various agencies, various entities trying to address this emergent need. I think this project that we have all of a sudden landed in our lap here has done a few things outside of Project Turnkey. It has lent us the ability to utilize each one of our agencies to see what we can do together in a cohesive, collective, collaborative manner in order to address a lot of these issues around the homelessness problems, as which were just exacerbated tremendously by the fires. That includes how do we go about obtaining some type of a system, a network system of organizing our housing units for preference. How do we relay that information to each other? What are the different processes that are available? And frankly, what are the resources that are out there so that we can all start communicating effectively to make an impact and a difference? So this is afforded a very quick opportunity for us to streamline that process. Project Turnkey is just one of those outcomes.
And Commissioner, would you like us to move on to Project Turnkey then?
Yes, please. I'm sorry. I touched the wrong key and I'm lost by myself. Yes, please. Claire, are you comfortable moving forward?
Yes, I am, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, Sheila is the expert, and we've been working together on this project. I just want to say thank you for the county being generous and providing my time to help work on this project. It's touching a lot of different agencies and will help a lot of different people across Lincoln County. So I would like to turn it over to Sheila to give you guys some details on the project.
Thank you. Well, we do have our eye on a specific property for this project. We are working on a signed purchase and sale agreement for the project as well in order to house at least 41 units worth of places for people to go, frankly, in the North County area, which was the hardest impacted by this. And I will tell you what, commissioners, I've always been very proud to be a resident in Lincoln County. And one of those reasons has been the just lightning speed network abilities of agencies to really come together with a shared mission of really addressing a high need issue. And it has been a very quick paced, rapid process to answer the call. You know, up in Lincoln City, when they ended up having there was a food truck that was going to come in, and we had 300 cars lined up to be able to obtain food in their trunks and just handed right there. And people waited for 6 hours and the food never arrived. And the people sat there for hours and hours and hours. You know, that just alludes and attests to the fact that we have a lot of issues and a lot of needs in this county that really need to be addressed. Project Turnkey is one of those, one opportunity in a million that we'll have to be able to make an impact and a difference. We really need to have something that is an intercept model. Everybody that we've been speaking to understands this. They accept this. They have signed on and gotten on board, whether that is with their services, whether it is with their in-kind, or whether it's with their donations, and future contacts for different type of contracts we can have, and the evolution of this property. The goal is to house individuals from these fires that desperately need it as an interim, to make sure that we are addressing the COVID-19 non-congregate issues. So there's going to be a lot of fast moving pieces. They would like to see this operation running in about 75 days. I don't know how likely that is, but we're certainly going to give that a good shot because the need is right now. And we're trying to be creative on how we can expedite that perhaps a little bit as well for the folks that are due to be out of their places as of December 31. So we are trying to be very creative and figure out how to work together in the interim, as well as the short-term, long-term look at this property and this project.
And I'll just jump in with a few other details too. So we have a lot of partners on board for this, some who have already committed to contracting out rooms in the longer term so that we know that we have operational costs covered. The purchase price is around $3.25 million for the property. We're looking at approximately $350,000 more or less in operational costs year by year, of which we think we can, we're estimating we are going to get about $310,000 out of occupancy. And so that's not at full occupancy, that leaves some room for some vacancy. And we have an additional about right now for the first year, about $100,000 that we're talking to various stakeholders about in commitments to make up that difference. So we have heard nothing but need from community members. I believe that Samaritan Health alone is looking to contract out 12 plus respite beds. Parole and probation has a need for that. I think mental health and behavioral health may have a need for that as well. So we're going to very quickly move from addressing the fire-related needs to needs of COVID community members and then disadvantaged groups. We're going to be staffing a fire services navigator position at this location. So every person who is going to be there is going to be case managed. This fire services navigator position currently exists in the Olala Center, and it's funded through mid-December. And so then once the funding from Project Turnkey comes in, that position will move over to being overseen by Sheila and her team. So they will be at the hotel, they will be managed. Parole and probation has also committed to making sure that they're providing support in this situation. So it actually looks that we've got a lot of momentum, we've got a lot of commitments, and they're also going to be working with the permanent supportive housing task force, which, as you know, is working in the community on the Fuse model. And so that's going to be another leverage point for Project Turnkey as well. And we're putting this in tomorrow, our application.
All right.
And thank you for that, Rachel. The great premise of this is that we've been talking about streamlining our services. I think you touched on it briefly, Doug, the frustration that you have. And you're right, it's very frustrating to bring everybody together at the same table to address individual tailored needs to an individual. And that is one of the points of utilizing this particular property as sort of a beta test on how do we do that? How do we pull together this streamlined filtered system that will address individual needs in a very efficient way in order to get them not just rehoused into permanent supportive housing, but into permanent housing and just repositioned and stabilized in the community. So that is a great outcome that we're looking at for this project to be used as one of those test sites for this particular opportunity.
All right. Anything else, or I'll turn to Commissioner Hall for some questions. Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Hunt. I'm not sure if I've got any questions at this point. You know, I've been working really closely with both Rachel and Sheila over the last week. I think I've lost count of the number of Zoom calls and emails we've exchanged in trying to, and successfully pulling together this coalition very quickly. Just my observation, as I think all of us in the government and nonprofit worlds are used to things happening at a pretty deliberative, almost glacial pace sometimes, but this is going against all of that. But I think we have a pretty sound operational plan. We have a projected budget that makes sense, and I think Sheila, did you say a once in a million or a once in a lifetime opportunity? I think truly this is it, and to some degree, it may feel like a leap of faith, and in some ways it is, but I really feel like it's very much a calculated leap that it's, I'm just really excited to see this go forward.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your support and your work in this too. And I also want to just call out what a powerhouse Sheila has been in pulling everyone in the community together so quickly. And it's just been fantastic to work with her.
Yeah, and it hasn't mattered nights, weekends. We've been on the phone to each other or Zooming with each other. Let me run this by you, or can I work on that? So, it's been consuming, but in a very positive way. And I'll just say again, Sheila has already alluded to this, but I don't think we would have been able to get there this quickly if over the last few years we hadn't already really built up this cooperative web of public and private service providers. I mean, we're all used to talking to each other, working with each other already. So, certainly in terms of the time pressures, it's been a big challenge to bring it together. But yeah, I would again echo what you said, Rachel, about there being nothing but need, and certainly people have all seen an amazing opportunity and are seen it and are ready to seize it. And just anecdotally, from some of my contacts in counties in other part of the state with need as great as ours or even greater, that I've had the sense that they're really struggling because a lot of their key, to pull together a viable grant application in this very short window, because, in some cases their providers haven't been talking with each other and they're starting from ground zero. So I have a lot of confidence in this.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Hall. I guess I have some concerns, and I will just voice them in a general sense. First of all, let me say that when I heard that Sheila and Northwest Coastal Housing was to be the lead on the application, that struck a very positive note with me. I'm well aware of the activities of the organization, particularly in the Lincoln City area and with housing. So I think that's very positive. And while I'm a banker and I have some questions on the budget, I'm not going to pursue that, because I believe that your board of directors and your organization, if you've vetted this budget and you're comfortable with the viability of it, I'll accept that. I am a little concerned about sustainability. It's one thing to have a budget for 1 year and it looks good, but I'm concerned about sustainability. But again, your organization has proven to be effective in addressing housing, and certainly would appear to be able to manage this initiative. Having said that, I know that the county has been asked to provide $10,000 in hard cash, which would come out of our general fund at a time, frankly, when our budgets are extraordinarily stretched. And I support the one-time contribution of hard cash, assuming that it is matched by the city of Lincoln City. And if they are willing to offer a lesser amount, I'm happy to match their lesser amount. But I have to be candid and say that with our budget situation, the providing of hard cash out of our general fund, frankly, comes at a time when it jeopardizes other operations of the county and staffing. So again, looking to the future, I think, certainly we're willing to support it with in-kind and other types of activities, and it's certainly a critically needed initiative. But I have some concerns about providing, hard cash and the impact that's going to have on the county operations at a time when our budgets are very challenged. So those are my thoughts. Again, if you're comfortable with a budget, I wish you the very best of luck, and I want to be as supportive as I can as you move forward.
Commissioner Hunt, could I chime in response to what you're saying? I
Absolutely.
certainly understand and agree with your concern about making new general fund commitments, even a one-time one like this at a time when, our resources are really being stretched very thin. I'll say I followed the debate in the two legislative emergency board sessions where the state made its general fund commitment to this, and not one member of the E-board was against this in concept. They absolutely agreed to the need, but the whole debate was whether this was the best. Well, whether they could really stand up something this big this quickly, which they finally decided the need is so overwhelming that they did decide to go forward on it. And then also, weighing in the context of the much larger multi-billion-dollar state budget, whether or not this was the best use of resources. So I understand from Council Belmont that the Lincoln City Council is scheduled to take this up tonight, and with the proposal for a matching hard cash amount. So to reflect Chair Hunt's proposal, what I would like to do at this time, if I could, I move that Lincoln County make a commitment of up to $10,000 in general fund support for toward this project turnkey application, contingent on the city of Lincoln City making a similar investment, and that our match will match the city's up to 10,000 or at a lesser amount if the city chooses to come in at a lesser amount. Are you comfortable with that?
Before I second it, well, will you add one time to that?
Yes. And let me, or just to add a second sentence to the motion with the understanding that this cash commitment is a one-time only commitment and in no way obligates us to any further general fund support of the project.
Okay, I'm happy to second it, and I'll echo your comments. I think this is critically needed. It comes at a time when we're all challenged with the budgets, and I'm happy to support this hard cash contribution, and I think there are many ways that we can all work collaboratively to address these critical concerns of people that have been devastated by the fire. So wholehearted support. And with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. So thank you, ladies. Anything else you'd like to contribute at this point?
Commissioners, can I request just, I'm sorry, real quickly, I'll convey this information to Lincoln City. They do have a work session scheduled tonight, so it was not a regular council meeting, but in talking to the city manager, if I can get this information now that you've actually taken this action, I'll get that to them. They'll bring this up, and hopefully they have the capability of actually making the same kind of commitment. And there's no guarantee. The city manager, while the city manager was supportive, said obviously the city council will have to do the same deliberations and considerations that you made here in their budget to do that. But I think the other thing is, can we also get either a consensus or a motion to direct staff to work with the commissioners to draft a letter of support, because we do need to have an official letter of support for the project, and that's going to happen before we have another meeting. So
Yes, please, because
okay.
I think Sheila and Rachel already mentioned, that there is a absolute hard submittal deadline of this on Wednesday, and they really want to just to make sure that we're in the queue and there's no slip ups, that that submittal will take place sometime tomorrow, correct? Sheila, you're muted, but I see your
She's
head nod.
nodding yes.
And the thumbs up. Yeah, so
Hand
if we can
signals.
understand that we need to have that letter to Sheila sometime tomorrow, the sooner the better, but absolutely sometime tomorrow, then I'm all in favor of that.
And based on your action today, we'll make sure it comes from the entire Board of Commissioners. That's great.
Excellent.
I support that. Rachel, you had your hand up.
Briefly, Commissioner Hunt, I wanted to just briefly address your question. So as you guys know, I work for you guys. And as much as I enjoy working with Sheila, I don't work for them. And I will say that that your contribution and the matching contribution of Lincoln City will make this application much more competitive. And I will also say, in looking at their operational budget, it is extraordinarily detailed, and the expenses are generous and the revenue is conservative. And so that is something that I feel very comfortable with. They're estimating expenses at full capacity, but they're only budgeting revenue at 2/3 capacity. And I think that's really reasonable given the conversations that we've had with the community. So my 2 bits.
All right. Well, as I said, I trust the organization to put together a sound budget. And I often have said we need to budget conservatively, which means revenues on the high side, revenues on the low side and expenses on the high side. That's a conservative budget. So understood and agreed. And again, really support the idea. And I think the fact, as Commissioner Hall's already stated, and you ladies indicated, the fact that we can pull this type of an effort together in our county speaks well of everybody that's involved. So keep up the good work, good luck, and we'll look forward to positive results. So, and
Thank you very much for the support.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, if there's nothing more on the Echo Mountain Complex, we'll move to public health. And I believe is Florence going to present, or Rebecca?
Florence is not going to present. It's Rebecca Austin, the Health Department Director. I'll be updating you today. And as we go into the update, you'll find out why Florence is not here. So the trends for COVID cases continue to go up nationally and in Oregon, and now currently in Lincoln County. So I'd like to show you some data that Florence put together over the weekend. And she's just counting cases, reported cases that we have. So you can kind of see how our trend goes. So you can see that the blue line is actual numbers. And then she can, I think with the help of some kind of software, she can strike a line that you see is kind of like an orangish dotted line that gives you the trend. So you can see that for October, we have a trend that has been going down. And then you can see the next chart is for November, and you can see that trend is going up. And that does not take into account what is happening in Lincoln County today. So we have sort of been holding our breath for this last month because we have seen everybody around us in the state really hit a surge that has really contributed to crippling our system, our public health system in Oregon. And despite the fact of the state developing a whole new database that would just be for counting cases and testing in COVID, which was great because the other system that was not really developed to take on all that extra work was not user friendly at all because the ball was just spinning and nobody could get into it. So then over the summer, they developed a new system called Opera, and a system that also they developed that would have just the contact tracing, which is called, oh gosh, I'm forgetting about what it's called. Anyhow, doesn't matter what it's called. So we had two new systems over the summer that were developed to deal with COVID. And now what is really happening is the Opera system now is locking up, similar to what our original database that we've been using for years to track all of our communicable diseases in the state.
So, excuse me for interrupting. I'm not sure I heard you correctly. The Opera system is locking up, freezing?
Yes,
Okay.
it's very difficult for us to get data from it right now, and it's not acting the way we have been expecting it to act. So we're actually having some problems getting our electronic lab results to drop into our county. I think I explained that in some meeting recently, that this database drops in all of the lab results and sorts it by county so that each county can go into their portal and see what lab results have come to us. So that's really how we start our case investigation, is we find that somebody's been tested and it's positive. And so our CD team starts calling up those people and then getting the contacts. So it's a critical piece for us to be able to do our work. And when those labs don't drop into our queue, as we are finding out today, all hell is breaking loose. So in other words, we don't know anymore what cases are positive. We are getting some dropping in, but there are many that are missing. And we're just now learning about those. Most of this early afternoon, late morning, early afternoon, we've been learning about this. So it's all pretty new. And so that pretty much explains why Florence isn't able to be with you today, because she and the CD team are quickly assessing the situation, trying to get their arms around it, talking with the hospital, who also has done some testing for us to see if they can help us out with some lab results. And really we're back into surge mode. So we have so far today had 14 cases drop in. So, but like I said, we are not feeling very confident that we are getting all of them. So this is potentially the tip of the iceberg. And so I just wanted to let you know about that. I don't really think it is appropriate for us to go over the regular dashboard at this point, because I think that these two charts right here tell the whole story. And you can imagine that where you see the line as of, I think it's Sunday's data, today's data, we're going to go off the charts with 14 cases. So that's definitely going to make that orange dotted line on your second graph there much steeper. So I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but that's sort of what we're up against today. And I think we were all sort of bracing for this day, but you know, when it finally does arrive, it doesn't make it any easier to, accept. So the other bit of news that we got late last week was that remember the trace testing that we had done this summer? They continue to test the wastewater in Newport, and that report from last week is showing a very big spike in Newport as well. So despite the fact that we got some pretty good results from our mass testing that happened on the week of the 10th, November 10th, there seems to be some activity in Newport now that we're not quite aware of yet. And then let me just give you the final test results from the mass testing, which is sort of the only bright spot in the day today, I'm sorry to say. We did end up testing 1,140 people throughout the county, and we had 6 positive tests from that. So that was our bit of good news. And at the same time, we recognized that the community was very supportive of our efforts to sort of do this mass testing, which was good because it didn't require any having any symptoms or even any contacts. So we can kind of be assured that when those are the two areas that we're working with in a mass testing site, that we're probably not going to get a lot of positive tests. But we are looking into other opportunities so that we have something that's a little bit more consistent in our county. We can't rely on the retail outlets here to do testing for people. They just aren't at that capacity yet. So we are working with the state right now to try to figure out what other kind of testing we could do for the community, and also beginning to look into venues where we could do it safely, but perhaps a little bit more out of the elements. So that's something we're also working on. And then we are finally putting out a press release today to really remind people that we need to scale back the holiday plans. And I think this is coming on the heels of us now going into more of a surge response. It's more critical than ever that our community pays close attention to the governor's freeze or pause rules, and that all holiday plans are considered social gatherings. And the rule for the freeze is that there are no more than 6 people from no more than 2 households. So that should curb a lot of people getting a lot of people together from different households. But we just really want to emphasize that this holiday season is not going to be like any other we've experienced in this country. And we're just going to have to accept that fact and go with the flow and try to the best we can to scale everything back. And we have put out some suggestions for that. And if you are going to have people over, even when they do conform to the 6 people, 2 households, that you take special precautions, because since we already are in surge response, we don't want to get overwhelmed, and we especially don't want to overwhelm our hospital system, which could be dire straits for many of our high-risk people. So I think that was all I wanted. Oh, I wanted to just, aside from the surge that we are experiencing, we also in public health are doing some vaccine planning for the COVID vaccine. And I just wanted to let you know that we are involved in that process. We are getting news pretty regularly, updates about how this is going to get rolled out. And they are planning some phases. So phase 1, which they're hoping will happen before the end of the year or very early next year. Phase 1 will be doses that will come to our hospital system, and they will be vaccinating healthcare workers that are working with COVID positive patients, and potentially our first responders who are also at pretty high risk of working with patients that could be COVID positive. And then the second phase that we're thinking potentially could come out in March and April will be really designed to reach our long-term care facility residents and workers, as well as other high-risk populations, which we have yet to determine exactly who that is yet. And then the final phase, the third phase, will be open for the public, hopefully by late spring, early summer. So it's kind of, that information is changing rapidly as well. So it's nothing unusual about working with COVID that is surprising. Everything changes all of the time. But the vaccine that they have coming out is, what I understand, is pretty sensitive to motion and to temperature. So there's quite a bit of work that's being done to try to mitigate both of those, so that when we do get the vaccine, we can, keep it so that it's going to be effective, which so far the tests show that it is pretty effective. So I think the challenge will be to get it where it's got to go and into the arms of people that need it the most, and maintain that sensitivity. And that's all I have for today.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hall, questions or comments?
Oh, wow. Where do I begin? Well, how about let's start at the very end. Director Austin, you were talking about this evolving planning for administration or distribution and administration of the vaccine. Where is the guidance on this coming from? State, Oregon Health Authority, or is this actually coming down from the federal level?
That's a good question. I do believe that we are getting our guidance from the state right now at OHA, but I do believe that the CDC is also weighing in on that.
Okay, and you talked about that the phase 1 doses would go directly to the hospital system, and then phase 2 and 3 at least is potentially the county going to be involved in administration in those phases, or is that still in the evolution?
That's still in the evolution, but I do believe, at least for phase 3, the public health department will be more involved for sure.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, it's good that we've got the final results on the mass testing, and I think this will, at least I hope, in the public's mind, help them understand that the mass testing has not been in any way a significant contributor to this surge. So just an observation there. This broken data system is, just extremely concerning. And so you said 14 positives have dropped in today, but it sounds like you have really no clear indication of whether there might be a couple of more hanging out there or a whole lot more. Am I understanding you correctly on that?
That's correct.
Ooh.
We're hoping not a whole lot more, of course, but we know of a couple that have never dropped in, and that was help of the hospital just to identify those, because you don't know what you don't know, right?
Sure. So
where
do we
have no
Oh, I'm
idea.
sorry. Wow, that's frightening to say the least. With this surge, can we circle back to our contact tracing capacity and where we stand in being able to hopefully aggressively attack the contact tracing?
Yeah, sure. So we have, as you know, we've hired full-time a couple of our contact tracers. So they're now part of the team. And they, of course, can do contact tracing. One of them we hired as a nurse, so she will be doing case investigations, and she's pretty much trained up to take that on. The other one we hired as a community health worker, and no doubt she will be getting back into the contact tracing work. And then we have about 4 or 5 others, I do believe, that have been helping us out for a long time, know the work, and they'll be getting those contacts as soon as we get the case investigations completed and know who the contacts are. So, and we have just sent out an email to all the public health staff, letting them know that they may be redirected in their work like we did this summer. And many of them, you know, are very, very aware of the work that has to be done. So hopefully they'll be just, and already they're starting to slip into place. So that's when I say we're going into our surge response. That's what I mean is we're pulling people out of their regular jobs and getting them to either do case investigations or begin with the contacts as we get them.
Okay, another question, you know, earlier in the year, we were following the state guidelines and reporting, you know, workplace outbreaks of 5 or more. I'm hearing some conflicting reports in the community, so I don't want to go into detail, you know, even though there's social media discussion about a possible large community gathering in one area of the county that also brought people in from outside the county, and people who were in attendance at that event saying that multiple people there tested positive for, I guess, events that are, you know, large outbreaks that we're able to confirm are traceable not to workplaces, but other, I guess, large gatherings. Will we be, you know, what's the policy we'll be following, or protocol for disclosure of that? Like, say, 12 people test positive after a pool party at Claire's house. Would that be disclosed?
I don't believe we would disclose a party at Claire's house.
Or anybody's house, because, you know, the people in this community, I think, you know, they're based on the anecdotal information immediately now. People are saying, oh my God, am I safe to go to the store? Am I safe to go to the post office? You know, I mean, there's a, you know, understandably a lot of community anxiety, and I know we have to struggle with giving people the informational tools they need, but at the same time not, you know, to make informed decisions, but at the same time not pointing a finger of, well, call it blame, and you know, especially without hard data to back it up. So I don't know, thoughts on this? And I know that's a really tough question, especially as vague as I'm making it, but.
Yeah. Well, I think public health does walk a bit of a fine line here in preserving people's confidentiality and alerting the public of what dangers are out there. So we are constantly walking that tightrope. And when it's a business that is open to the public, we do have our policy that when we alert the public about an outbreak. For a personal residence, I don't foresee that we would be doing that. That seems in a bit of a violation to me anyhow. Especially when it's not a public threat, somebody's house.
Mm-hmm. But say not necessarily a you know, a for-profit business, but some other venue where members of the public are able to gather or have gathered. Well, I don't know, like say I don't know, or even you know, an informal gathering in the event space of a hotel or motel.
Well, yeah, in a hotel or motel, we probably would, for sure.
Okay.
Because I just think the risk to the public is there for a hotel or motel.
Kind of venue
And
I'm
Like
sorry.
a pool, if there's an outbreak at a pool, we would probably alert the public about that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think the kind of thinking through whether the public is at risk and needs to know.
Okay. That's helpful. Well, wow. I think that's all the questions I've got at this time. So, Commissioner Hunt? Commissioner, you're still muted if you're talking.
I muted myself so when the cuckoo clock went off, it wouldn't interfere. So thank you for pointing out the fact I was still muted. So Director Austin, I guess depending on who you talk to, there are varying degrees of confidence in the data that we get, and we could be the county, or I guess any county within the state, maybe the state itself, but there's varying degrees of confidence in the data. Do you feel we're headed in a direction where we'll have a higher level of confidence? Or I guess I'm interested in your thoughts about the degree of confidence in the data that we're getting and will be getting in the near future.
It's a really good question. We do have some serious concerns about the data that we're getting now with Opera being so slow. And a lot of counties around us that have been in surge for a couple weeks now have dropped to paper. So they're not even putting data into Opera because it's just too slow. So I think we're in a bit of a bind here. I don't think that, I think it's safe to say that the data that we do have is underrepresenting the cases that we have. We're not doing enough testing in our county and really across the state to have a really good handle on how much COVID is out there. So if anything, I think we can just assume that things are getting a little bit out of control across the country, and Oregon is not an exception, and that we need to hunker down and do a really good job of keeping our distance, unfortunately, wearing our masks, washing our hands, staying home when we're sick. All those things are really, really crucial. And right now, I don't think people are making really good decisions. So that's what I worry about more than even Opera at this point, because Opera isn't going to fix the problem for us. The problem is going to be fixed by all of us taking responsibility and following the rules that we have out there. It's all we've got right now, really, to tell you the truth. And if we lose the ability to know exactly what cases we do know that are positive, and we can't do the contact tracing, we're going to be even in more trouble. So I think it's just safe to hunker down for a few weeks, just like the governor said, and just stop our activities.
Well, I think with that comment, you answered my next question, but I'll ask it anyhow. Is there anything that we as the Board of Commissioners can do as far as writing a letter or doing something to share our concerns? I'm certainly confident that you're capable of sharing the concerns, but would it help if we were to do something in support of those concerns or sharing those concerns?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think anything any of us can do to, really bring this home to our citizens that we're in trouble, and we all need to take responsibility. This is all up to all of us. So, I've always said that from the get-go. We're all in this together. So anything that anybody wants to do to help us out here, I'm all for it. This is a team sport for sure.
All right, well, I guess if there's a letter or some other communication that we might do, I'm certainly open to considering it. And I will let you or ask you to let us know if there's something else or if that would even be helpful. So you can get back to me on that.
Okay, thanks.
The other next question I have is, when will our HHS staff be in the queue, if you will, to get vaccination?
Oh, boy. I'm not sure if any of our staff would fall into the phase 2 or not. I think that's still kind of up in the air. We probably won't make the first round. I'm thinking. I'm really worried about the first round. They're pretty high projections, although I think I've heard the number 200,000 doses coming into the state in the first round. That's for the whole state. That's dedicated to the healthcare workers. And we don't know yet if that's for just the single dose or if that includes 2 doses for those workers. So I'm pretty sure we will not make that cut. But hopefully in the second phase, we could get at least our primary care and some of our behavioral health staff that work directly with COVID positive or potentially COVID positive people face to face could be in that next round.
Well, you identified my concern exactly. And again, I think particularly those people that are in direct care and behavioral health that are dealing, frankly, literally face to face with individuals that can be infected. I would hope that they're high in the queue when it comes to the availability of the vaccine. So I guess I'd like to continue to be posted on how that is evolving.
Sure.
And then I guess the last thing I'd say is I really want to thank you and your staff. Clearly, they're being proactive in trying to anticipate the surge, and certainly under your leadership are taking action to try to be as prepared as possible so that we're able to address what may happen when it happens. So my thanks to you and your staff for their hard work and what continue to be extraordinarily challenging times under extraordinarily difficult situations. So thank you for your efforts. And I think that's one of the reasons we've seen, while there may be some question as to the data, I think that it certainly says that compared to a lot of counties, we've done a pretty good job.
Well, thank you for saying that, Commissioner. I appreciate that. And I know the team would appreciate that too. I do want to just say that, you know, this has been a little bit of a pessimistic report, but I do want to say on the upside is that we are so much better prepared now than we were back in June when we got our big outbreak. We know so much more about COVID. The staff are feeling much more confident about you know, the message we need to deliver to people that are positive and to the contacts. And we have a great group of people that are, you know, hanging in there and working hard. So I think that's all to our benefit, really. Yep. We're fortunate.
Absolutely. Agreed. All right. Anything else on the COVID update?
Chair Hunt, if I may, just I want to
Please
second the sentiments that you expressed. It has been a supremely challenging time for our public health team. They've risen to the occasion, and I'm sorry that you know, this is a heartbreak. You know, not only a stressor and a heartbreak for them, but for the entire community as well, because the people who are willing and able to see the reality of this and really the dangerous time we're in. You know, I've lost count, and I'm sure you probably have as well, knowing the number of people who have canceled traditional family gatherings for the next several weeks, and you know, absolutely say it's, you know, it's a very painful thing, but it's they know it's absolutely the right thing, as somebody said we don't gather this year so that we all may be at the table when the time comes to gather next year.
That's right. Yes. If I could
Great.
just take this moment to for a little shout out to all of our partners at HHS, because primary care and behavioral health are amazing partners for us, as well as the DD team. And then also the school system and the hospital system and our first responders have just been doing a remarkable job for us. We can all be very proud in Lincoln County of the work that everybody's doing to help curb this disease.
And DD is developmental disabilities, I believe.
Yes, and they work with a pretty high risk population that live in congregate care settings, so they have to be on their toes.
Yep.
And all of our providers in those care settings, so they've been doing an awesome job.
Well, please share both Commissioner Hall's and my comments, and I know that if Chair Jacobson was here, she'd certainly echo them.
I will do that. Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. I do believe we have a bit of a housekeeping item. Next on the agenda would be the state financial assistance to small businesses. Is that Council Belmont's report?
It is. Commissioners, I was going to talk about now, we now have further information on the business emergency financial assistance. There was $55 million provided statewide to help small businesses impacted by the response to COVID, and especially in the freeze that was occurring very recently. So we now have further guidance from the state, and we're going to be working on standing up our process for distribution of these funds out to the community. So again, it was $55 million statewide. Lincoln County share has been determined at north of $900,000. There's a little bit more than that, but we may need some of that money to contract out for some of the administrative work that needs to be done to get this out. I do want to note that this is really late these are CARES Act funds, and this is really late in the process. We've all been under the impression that, of course, we had to get this money out and into the community before December 30th. I do want to note that at least very preliminary information we have now is that although it's for business losses incurred prior to December 30th, 2020, and so losses in 2020, it can be paid out through the first quarter of 2021. At least that's the guidance we're getting from the state. I still have to confirm some of that information. The allocation process is really at the discretion of the county. They left it up to us to determine what to do. There are a set of eligibility requirements. So there are some sideboards that we're going to have to incorporate into our process. Probably the key ones are that it has to be, of course, an Oregon business with its principal operations in Oregon. And it's really out there. It's designed to really help and encourage to help the hospitality industry, businesses that were impacted, other businesses that were impacted by the freeze, small businesses, and women, people of color, and tribal-owned businesses. So that's some of the criteria that we'll have in our application process. And when they're talking about businesses that were adversely impacted recently, they really have two criteria here. One is that it was a business that was prohibited from operating under the governor's executive orders, 20-12 and 20-65, and there's a list of those particular businesses that were impacted there. Or a business that can demonstrate a 1 month decline in sales of 25% or more incurred as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic between March 1st, 2020 and November 30th, 2020, as compared against the same period in 2019. So right now, what we're working on doing is putting together a program to accept applications from folks to get this money, to set up a group that will actually review those applications to make decisions and determinations, and then to distribute that money out into the community. And because this is a county-led process, we're again looking at doing some things internally, some through contract, and following a couple of models we've seen across the county and state to get the money out there as quickly as we can to the community. So the state has indicated to us that they will give us a contract sometime before Thanksgiving to review. So we'll have this on your calendar for next the 30th, next Monday, for adoption of that agreement with the state. We could see the money itself coming to the county. And this is not a reimbursement type program for the county. They'll actually drop the whole amount that's been allocated to the county in one payment to the county. And that could come as early as December 1st or 2nd, that we might see that. And then our hope is to really put together an application process, get the applications for an appropriate period of time in front of everybody, and really make some decisions well before the end of the month. So we'll come back to you next week as we pull together our process for getting the monies out with some more concrete details and deadlines for this. But at least now we learned this weekend that there is a way to get this money out and into the community.
Commissioner Hall, any questions or comments?
No, well, actually, yeah, a question for Mr. Belmont. Next Monday, when you present the contract to us for review, will we also have, do you think you'll be able to have ready for us a recommendation, at least for us to consider, of what the best mechanism would be for getting this money out to eligible businesses and getting it out quickly?
That's what I'm striving for, yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. No, this is very good news, and to say the least. And I saw the state's guideline is recommending, I guess, not requiring, but recommending that counties prioritize businesses in the hospitality industry. And certainly there have been impacts across the board, but when you look at our huge surge in unemployment and how heavily that has been tied to job losses in hospitality, I'd just like to say that, at least in concept, I certainly would favor that directive as well, but we'll be looking for staff guidance.
All right, so Council Belmont, do you need an approval of authorization for either Chair Jacobson or myself to execute a contract prior to Monday, or can that wait until our next meeting?
Well, at this point, they said that they would try and get us the contract by Thanksgiving, and given that it goes right into the holiday weekend, there's really no advantage, I think, for us to not wait and do it on Monday. And so I think we can wait and get this put this as an action item, but that'll give us an opportunity to review the agreement and get you back any comments we've got on that and get that adopted prior to December 1st.
Okay, and I certainly support trying to make sure these monies are at least the consideration be given to those businesses that have been in the hospitality industry that have been most adversely impacted, and certainly businesses of minorities and frankly other lower income individuals. So certainly support the comments of Commissioner Hall. And the last thing I'll say is another example, Commissioner Hall, of government moving at other than glacial speed.
Indeed.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on now to Commissioner reports. Commissioner Hall.
I don't think I have anything to add beyond what I've already discussed. I think kind of being backstop on getting the turnkey application together has been my single biggest time focus over the last week or so.
All right, I have a couple of very minor things. First of all, Casey, can you let me know, have we been live streaming from a certain point in the meeting?
Yes, we have. We started live streaming about 13 minutes in.
Okay, so bulk of the meeting has been live streamed.
And Chair,
pardon me?
Chair, we take the GoTo meeting recording and then load that up onto the YouTube page afterwards. So for people who watch the meeting into the future, they'll see the full meeting.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you for that clarification. Second of all, I'll have to chide my fellow comrade, Commissioner Hall. I don't know what my brain was doing earlier, apparently trying to call a meeting to order and recognize the dates. I failed to realize that today is the 23rd, not the 22nd. And of course, the 22nd was the day that President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, and I was 13 years old in the 8th grade. So,
Well, I did notice that, Commissioner Hunt, but I wasn't going to call you out on it.
well, I deserve to be called out on that, but thank you for your consideration and not to make light of that very tragic day. But
still reverberating 57 years later.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, happy Thanksgiving to everyone, all the employees of the county, all the residents of the county, and if there are a few guests, certainly wish everyone a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. And with
Amen.
that, if there's no other business, the next meeting of the Lincoln
Chair Hunt, you muted yourself, it looks like.
Yeah, again, I hit a wrong button. Sorry about that. Thank you. Next meeting of the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners will be Monday, November 30th at 3 p.m. and it will be a virtual meeting, as has been the case recently. And with that, we are adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving.
This conference will now be recorded.